The morning sky was pale and quiet when Ion stepped outside his house. The air felt cool against his face, and for a moment, everything around him seemed calm. But inside him, there was a rush of feeling of being late, being tired, and trying to do too many things at once. He had slept through his alarm again, and today he needed to reach work earlier than usual. His team had a big meeting with a new client, and he had promised himself he would not be late this time. But here he was, already behind schedule, rushing down the steps, hoping the day would somehow slow down for him. He unlocked his old silver car, tossed his work bag onto the passenger seat, and sat down. His seatbelt hung loosely beside him, but he didn't reach for it. He rarely skipped it, but today he felt too rushed, too anxious, too focused on the clock, glowing urgently on the dashboard. "It's fine," he muttered to himself, convincing his heart that he would be careful, that it was only a short drive, that he didn't need the belt for just one rushed morning. He took a deep breath, turned the key, and drove out of the neighborhood. The roads were not too busy, but there were enough cars to remind anyone to be cautious. Ion tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He kept checking the time every few seconds. Each red light felt like a personal attack. Every slow driver in front of him felt like a challenge. He knew he shouldn't feel angry, but the pressure of arriving late pressed hard on him. As he approached the main road, he remembered his mother's words from last night. She had lightly reminded him, "Always buckle up, Ion. You never know what might happen." At the time, he had laughed, telling her he was always careful. But now, as the memory floated into his mind, he glanced at the empty seatbelt beside him. A thought crossed his mind, should I stop and put it on? But then he shook his head. "It's fine. I'll be careful." He turned onto the highway and felt the engine hum louder as he accelerated. The morning sun was rising slowly, painting warm colors over the road, but Ion barely noticed. His mind was stuck on the presentation he might mess up if he arrived late. He rehearsed sentences in his head. He planned how he would apologize. He wondered if his boss would be disappointed again. A small car ahead of him slowed down, and Ion pressed the brakes sharply. His body jolted forward slightly. For a split second, he felt the absence of the seatbelt, a strange, uncomfortable reminder of how exposed he was. His heart skipped a beat, but the moment passed quickly. "It's fine," he whispered to himself again, though the uncertainty in his voice was growing. He checked his side mirror and merged into another lane to avoid the slow car. The highway stretched long and straight, and he allowed himself to speed up a little. But something felt off, not wrong, but uneasy, almost like a quiet warning. His phone buzzed on the seat beside him. The screen lit up with his mother's name. She always called him in the mornings to check in, especially when she knew he had a long day ahead. Normally, he would answer with a smile, but today he was too stressed, too focused on the time, too distracted by his own thoughts. He didn't pick up. The phone buzzed again, then stopped. Ion didn't notice the small tightness forming in his chest, the feeling of regret that would come to him later. Up ahead, the traffic began to thicken. Cars slowed down, and brake lights glowed bright red across the lanes. Ion sighed with frustration. "Not today," he whispered. "Please, not today." He tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, trying to stay patient, but every second felt heavy. The cars ahead were moving slower and slower, and he could feel his stress rising. He leaned forward, trying to see what was happening. Maybe construction? Maybe an accident? He wasn't sure. Then, without warning, a large dark SUV in the next lane swerved slightly, almost drifting toward him. Ion panicked and pulled his steering wheel to the right, trying to avoid it. His heart pounded. The SUV corrected itself, but the moment had unsettled him deeply. He wasn't wearing a seatbelt. He felt too light, too vulnerable, as if the smallest impact could throw him around. He swallowed hard, and his breath became faster. More and more, he began to realize that he had made a careless choice that morning. But the traffic was too close, too tight. He told himself it was unsafe to stop now. Minutes passed. The road began to move again. Ion tried to calm himself. He loosened his tense shoulders, inhaled deeply, and reminded himself to stay focused. But the truth was, his thoughts were scattered. He was thinking about work, about the near miss with the SUV, about his mother's missed call, and about the seatbelt he still hadn't put on. The world outside his car seemed louder now. The roar of engines, the honk of horns, the sound of tires on the road, it all felt sharper, almost like warnings he couldn't quite understand. Then it happened. A car 2 vehicles ahead of him suddenly braked too hard, too suddenly. The car directly in front of Ion reacted instantly, screeching to a stop. But Ion had been distracted, thinking again about the meeting, the stress, the morning rush. By the time he looked forward, it was already too late. His foot slammed the brake. The car lurched violently. His heart flew to his throat. He felt the tires struggle against the road. Everything slowed down. The world stretched out in front of him like a long, terrible moment. He wasn't fast enough. The impact came with a sudden, forceful jolt. His body flew forward, unrestrained, and he felt the harsh strike of the dashboard. A loud, hollow sound echoed inside the car, and his vision blurred. The airbag burst open, cushioning him, but not enough to stop the sharp pain rushing through his body. For a moment, everything went silent. The world outside continued as normal, the cars, the horns, the distant noises, but inside his car, there was a quiet emptiness, as if time had paused just for him. He struggled to breathe. His chest felt tight. His head felt heavy. His hands trembled uncontrollably. He could hear voices outside. Someone shouted, "Are you okay?" Another person knocked on the window. But he couldn't respond yet. His thoughts were scattered fragments, floating around like broken pieces. Slowly, he blinked and lifted his hand. The door opened from the outside, and a man's worried face appeared. "Don't move too quickly," the man said in a gentle voice. "Help is on the way." Ion nodded faintly. His voice wouldn't come out. Minutes later, he saw flashing lights in the distance. The sound of sirens grew louder. More voices surrounded him. He closed his eyes as paramedics carefully checked him, asking him questions, helping him breathe normally, making sure he was stable. They lifted him gently out of the car, placed him onto a stretcher, and carried him toward the ambulance. The world around him felt hazy, but one clear thought pierced through everything. I should have worn my seatbelt. As the ambulance drove, Ion kept replaying the morning. The rush, the worry, the phone call he ignored, the seatbelt he told himself he didn't need. All the excuses he made felt small and foolish now. He remembered his mother's gentle words. He remembered the moment he almost stopped to buckle up, but didn't. And he remembered the sudden, terrifying impact that reminded him how fragile life truly is. At the hospital, doctors examined him carefully. His injuries were painful, but not life-threatening. He was lucky, very lucky. A doctor told him quietly, if the airbag hadn't deployed correctly, or if the impact had been slightly different, the situation could have been much worse. Always wear your seatbelt. Ion nodded, tears building in his eyes. The doctor's words hit him harder than the crash itself. Later that evening, his mother sat beside his hospital bed, holding his hand tightly. Her eyes were red from crying. She kept brushing his hair away from his forehead, as if he were a child again. "You scared me so much," she whispered. "I'm sorry," Ion said, his voice breaking. "I should have listened. I should have worn it." She didn't scold him. She didn't say, "I told you so." She simply hugged him, and in her quiet embrace, he felt both the pain of his mistake and the comfort of knowing he had been given a second chance. In the days that followed, Ayan recovered slowly. Every time he sat in a car, even as a passenger, his hand instinctively reached for the seatbelt. The click of the buckle became a small but powerful reminder of the life he could have lost. He returned to work weeks later. People welcomed him back warmly, grateful that he had survived. And though the meeting he had worried so much about was long forgotten, the lesson from that day stayed with him forever. And he shared it with everyone he knew, friends, coworkers, younger cousins, strangers even. Whenever he saw someone sitting without a seatbelt, he gently reminded them, please wear it. You never know what might happen. The accident changed him. Not through pain, but through clarity. Life could shift in a single moment, with no warning, no second to prepare. And something as small as a seatbelt could be the line between survival and tragedy. He carried that truth with him always. Moral lesson: never ignore the importance of safety. A seatbelt may feel small, but it can save your life. One moment of carelessness can change everything, so always choose the safer path.